All right, great. So we are live and I see the audience streaming in. We are already 30 plus people in this room. I know it's going to take a second for everyone's audio to connect and they being able to hear me. So those of you who are in this room right now and are able to hear me clearly, please through the chat window, let us know the city that you're dialing in from. So this is also an audio test that I do. So let us know the city that you're dialing in from. It's always good to see the spread of the audience where they're coming from. So if you are able to hear what I'm saying right now and you are able to respond in the chat window, let us know the city that you're dialing in from. So great, I see the responses coming in. That tells me my audio is working well. And I also see some people coming in from Kathmandu. So great. Arzu, good to have you over here. I saw someone from Ahmedabad, Pune. I see someone from Dubai, Bangalore, Jalandhar, Vellore, Washington, D.C. Okay. Someone is dialing in from the home of George Washington University. So great. I see someone from Lagos, Nigeria. Welcome. Mohali, Punjab, Delhi, USA, Iran. Okay, great. Hi, Zara. Great to have you over here. So it's wonderful to see the audience spread. We do such sessions on a weekly basis, and we are seeing audience coming in from more and more interesting cities, countries across the world, and it's really exciting to see such diversity in this room. So welcome everyone. It's a pleasure to be hosting you. My name is Sanjay Dhingra. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Seed Global Education. We are a firm which specializes in doing such sessions. So we specialize in facilitating such interactions between top universities. So universities like George Washington University and candidates like yourself who are looking to go to the US or go study somewhere else in the world and want to connect with such top tier schools to understand about their programs, the opportunities you can explore, and take a more informed decision. So welcome everyone. Thank you for joining this session. It's great to be hosting the enthusiasm or seeing the enthusiasm and the interest in this session. I have 150 plus people in this room. And with that, I am going to kickstart this session. Today's session is around finding your best fit engineering program in the US. So best fit MS program in the US. Now we will hear from Erin Ward, who is with the admissions team at George Washington University. We are also going to speak to some current students at GW Engineering from various backgrounds, and they are going to talk about their decision-making process and share with you on how they decided or finalized on GW Engineering for their higher studies. So we are going to speak to them shortly. But before I start this interaction, let me run the polls for the evening. We really want to gauge your understanding, or we really want to gauge where you are in your whole decision-making journey. And this would really help us make this session more informative. So if you're able to see on your screens right now, the polls are live. You would be able to respond to the polls right now if you're able to see. The first question is, are you considering applying to a graduate engineering program in the US? So it's a yes, no question. If you are looking to apply to graduate engineering programs in the US, say yes. If you are undecided or no, or you're clear that you're not looking to study engineering in the US, then say no. But if you are considering applying to engineering programs this year or even next year, say yes to that first question. Tells us where you are in your application decision-making journey. The next question is around how many, according to you, how many US university offer engineering degrees? So this also tells us about the various choices or options out there for you. So if you can take a guess on this, let us know how many how many US universities offer engineering programs. And the last question is, which is your top priority when you evaluate university options? And Jitendra, your question, do you get an application fee waiver from George Washington Engineering for attending this event? Yes, you do. So stay put in this session, not just for the application fee waiver. There's more coming your way. You also become eligible for special scholarships from Seed Global Education. You get amazing insights from Erin and the students at GW Engineering. So stay put in this session, not just for the application fee waiver, but for the knowledge and insights that you're going to get from this session. But before we kickstart this session and talk about these interesting topics, through responding to this poll question, let us know where you are in your decision-making journey. Are you considering applying to graduate engineering programs in the US? So yes or no. According to you, how many US universities offer engineering degrees? So, or engineering programs as such. So take a guess for that, or take an informed guess if you can. And then lastly, what is your top priority when you evaluate university options? Do you look at the curriculum? Do you look at the internship opportunities and career opportunities? Do you look at research opportunities? Is it the location that drives your decision? Is it the cost of the program, the cost of attendance, or is it something else that drives your decision? So through this, let us know where you are. I have 113 responses which have come in. I'm going to wait for another 10 seconds before I end this poll. So if you haven't yet responded, please do respond to this poll. It would be great to see where you are in your whole decision-making journey as such. All right, 118 responses. I'm going to end at 120. So, okay, we touched the 120 mark right there. And I am going to share the results on the screen as well. So around 64% of the audience, so 2/3 of the audience is looking to apply to graduate engineering programs in the US. 36% are saying no, so possibly they haven't made up their mind or are looking at programs in some other domain possibly. The second poll question was approximately how many US universities offer engineering degrees or engineering programs. The highest guessed number is 1,000, 43% said that. The closest next was 39% saying 500. Let me tell you that the majority was correct in this case. So there are around 1,000 universities in the US that offer engineering degrees or engineering programs. So if you think from just that perspective, there are so many options out there, and that can possibly be extremely confusing for someone who's trying to make that decision. There's so many choices out there, and finding your best fit program can be a challenge, which I have heard students' voice or prospective student voice for over my last decade in the education industry. So it's an extremely complex, complicated, and challenging decision. So we are going to talk about that very shortly. And the one driving factor, one top priority, which candidates think about while taking this decision is the career support and the career opportunities that the university or the school opens up for them. So great, we will talk about all of these factors when we speak to Erin shortly. So we cannot speak about how to look at curriculum, what to think about when you're evaluating the curriculum, what kind of career opportunities you should look for in your target school, the opportunities in research, cost of attendance. So we are going to talk about all of this with Erin shortly. With that, let me invite Erin to take over. I am not going to get into a detailed introduction. I'm going to let her introduce herself in detail. I think I've spoken enough already, but I'm going to let Erin do her introduction and talk to us about what you should be doing if you are looking to find your best fit MS program in the United States. With that, over to you, Erin.
Yeah, thank you so much for the introduction. Can you see my screen okay? Great. All right, so thank you so much for the introduction. My name is Erin Vogt, as Sanjay mentioned. I'm the Senior Associate Director of Graduate Recruitment and Admissions for GW's School of Engineering and Applied Science. So I'm happy to be here today to talk to you about finding your best fit graduate program in the US. I happen to work for the School of Engineering, so a lot of what I talk about tends to be about engineering, but I do want to say that I've seen the chats and the messages asking about other areas of interest, other topic areas, and yes, I think the presentation today will be very applicable for you. It's much more general about how to think about finding the right university for you, especially considering many of the factors that differentiate universities across the US. So I hope that this will be helpful for anyone who's joined us today, and please let us know along the way if you have questions that we can help direct during our conversation with you this morning. So just briefly, something about US education and what makes it unique and what helps set you apart as someone who is going to study in the US. Our education model requires students to innovate, to explore things, to discover new things. We encourage students to ask a lot of questions, why something is the way it is, how things work, etc., which means graduate study in the US, especially engineering study, is a great place for students to challenge their understandings, challenge their beliefs about how things work or why things work, and work through their questions and their interests with faculty members. Our faculty members are typically open to a lot of questions, a lot of discussions, even differing opinions during the course of your education. So that's something that really makes our education system unique. And generally, our programs and our institutions are very diverse. So we have a lot of different types of institutions. We have students coming from all over the world who want to study in the US. So that adds a different element to your education and really helps to enhance what you're learning in the classroom with all the other experiences of students around you, of the faculty members, and so forth. Excuse me. So as Sanjay mentioned, he asked about how many institutions in the US offer engineering. The answer is over 1,000. We have over 4,000 higher education institutions in the US. So when you think about applying to universities in the US and you're maybe Google searching and trying to find information about a university, it can be incredibly complicated to find the best university for you, or you're just looking for the best university in a certain subject. We have more than 4,000 and many of them are very, very good. So that's why I wanted to do this session today, really talking about how to find the best university for you when you're searching through the mountains and mountains of information that's available to you out there about programs in the US. So first of all, here are a few of the basic criteria that we can talk about today. And as Sanjay mentioned, please let us know throughout the session. At the end, we'll be open for Q&A. So if you're thinking of other things that you want to ask questions about that we don't cover, please do let us know. But some of the important considerations for students that we hear frequently are the location of a university, the university facilities, career services offerings, financial assistance and support. So these are just a few of the things that come together to help find what is the best fit for you. So if you know you need a certain level of financial support, if you know your main objective is to find a certain career opportunity or to do an internship in the US, if you are interested in a certain type of research and you need to make sure that the university offers the facilities for that research, if you're interested in a certain location, a big city, not a big city, everyone has different preferences, warm weather, cold weather, and so forth. So if there are certain factors like that you want to consider, that can really help narrow your search to a smaller subgroup of universities that you might consider. And mostly what we first hear from students when they're talking about considering the university are questions about the program. So what program do you offer? How long is it? What research opportunities are available to me? If I go through this program, what career opportunities can I have? So these are really common questions that we get as an admissions team from students who are considering our university. And these are important questions to ask any university that you're interested in considering. So a question would be like, what type of career services, what type of office is available to students to get coaching, to get career coaching, to help prepare you? Does the university offer job fairs? Do they connect you with employers? Will they connect you with alumni in your field? Do they provide alumni networking opportunities where you can kind of meet and greet and talk to alumni that have done internships that you're interested in or have completed research in a certain program? Those are all really, really valuable questions to ask to make sure that the university is going to provide what you're looking for and help you get the outcome that you're looking for. Most of the information about an academic program you can typically find on the university's website. And if you ask a lot of general questions about a program, they'll probably refer you to the website to find details about things like the course offerings, the number of credits in a program, that sort of thing. That's usually the basic information that's available to you, but definitely dig deeper and ask questions about if there's specific courses that you're interested in, specific niche areas of study. Ask those questions about the availability of classes in that topic, or how do you get connected with a faculty member that you might be interested in doing research with, and that sort of thing. In addition to the academic program and the professional resources available to you, look for other student resources as well. So a comprehensive university in the US is going to offer a wide variety of services to its students that you're entitled to as a student there. As you pay your tuition, this is what it goes towards as part of your student experience. So in addition to the career services offered to our students, you'll find things like professional or academic advisors. These are people like coaches who help you get through your graduate program and navigate all the requirements. International Services Office. So this is an office that would help you with any questions you have about your student visa or your I-20 document that's required for studying in the US. What work are you allowed to do? Are you allowed to travel outside the US? Some basic questions that you want to be sure that the university is going to have resources to help you with those kind of questions. Student health services. Many universities in the US offer health services, medical services to students right on the campus. So you don't have to worry about finding your own doctors or medical care during your time there. Libraries, writing centers, tutoring centers. So if you're struggling in a class, where do you go for help? Do you go to the faculty member? Is there tutoring available? Are there peer study groups? All those kind of things. And student organizations as well. So you can certainly talk to some students. We have some students with us here today that I'll introduce to you who are studying currently at GW, but they may be involved in student organizations, activities, there's sports, there's clubs, anything that you have an interest in. There's often social activities for that at US universities so that you can get involved not just in your major and your subject area, but just in other activities across the university. Internships and work experience. So I want to talk about this a bit because I know everyone, the majority of students that answered our poll questions said that this was their top priority when they're looking for a university program in the US. So international students who are studying in the US are typically eligible for a few different work opportunities as part of their student visa. So F1 visa students are eligible typically for curricular practical training, CPT, optional practical training, OPT, and then if you're studying in engineering or another STEM field, OPT STEM extension. So these are just the permissions that allow you to work in the US. CPT is during your program, so doing an internship during your academic program. And then OPT is at the end of your program once you graduated. If you find a job opportunity in your field, it has to be directly in the field that you studied. You have the opportunity to stay and work 1 year in the US, or if it's a STEM field like engineering, you can work an additional 2 years, so up to 3 years in the US. As part of essentially an extension or a permission of your student visa in the US. So this is a great opportunity and one that many of our international students, our international graduate students especially, take advantage of. They come to study for 1 to 2 years, and then after that, they also stay a few years and get work experience in the US. Especially if you're in a field like engineering, like technology, there are a lot of job opportunities. And so if this is something that you want as part of your program studying in the US, you can certainly start working on that when you get here, start meeting with your career services representatives and that sort of thing. If this is a priority to you, as we learned that it is to many of you on the meeting this morning, then definitely talk about this before you commit to attending a certain university. So this is something you want to ask some questions about, like how many students does the university have studying on OPT? Are there specific career coaches that are used to working with international students and all the intricacies that come with students on a student visa, so that they can offer the best advice to you about how to find the job opportunities that will fit the requirements that you have and get you the best professional experience during your time in the US. And as I just mentioned before, I did bring a few students with me today that are current graduate students. I'll introduce them to you shortly. One of them, Srinivas, he can talk about his experience as well. He just had a great internship experience. And if you have some questions about how he got that or want to learn more, he can help address those questions for you. So when we talk about the university location and facilities, these are just sample pictures. This is my university, George Washington University. This is our science and engineering hall. So in the upper left, for example, you see our high bay with strong wall and strong floor. This is used for engineering research, especially in our civil engineering department, for example, to test different materials, different developments, the impact of things. And so this is an example of a highly specialized laboratory or piece of equipment that a university might have that you would look for if you're interested in doing a certain type of research. So just something to keep in mind about university facilities. In the top right, for example, you see one of our computer labs. You want to ensure that they have the resources for students that will help you do the learning that you want to do the research that you want to do throughout your time there, that you'll have access to the facilities that you want as a student. These examples are kind of specific to engineering, but if you're a student in a different type of field, this could still apply. Even if you're a student in a subject like education, for example, what opportunities are there to get into a classroom, to see US education firsthand, those kind of things. So similar concept can apply across any type of major or program that you're interested in, just understanding the facilities that you're going to have access to and asking questions about what you want to know about the facilities a university offers. Okay, we're almost done here, and I'm going to turn it over to our students to introduce themselves and say a few words. But before we get to that, I'll just walk through some of the typical application requirements. This is something else that we get a lot of questions about when we do presentations, when we do sessions with students, especially international students, about what is required of them to be considered for a program. So let me walk through that quickly and hopefully get ahead of some of those questions, and then we'll move on from there. So these are our main admission requirements at GW. So we require an online application. We require your transcripts or academic records. If you're in India, as I know much of our audience is today, that includes your individual semester mark sheets. Test scores. So we currently do not require GRE scores. They used to be a requirement for us, and that requirement is currently waived, has been waived since COVID. English proficiency scores are required. We've recently added Duolingo, so we accept TOEFL, IELTS, Duolingo scores. Letters of recommendation from faculty members or supervisors, internship supervisors, that sort of thing. A statement of purpose and your resume or CV. So these are all of the basic requirements that many programs across the US will require as part of the application process. So to make this as general as possible, of course, some schools at this point require GRE, some do not. So that's a question you'll want to ask or check the university's website for, if that's something that you need to take prior to the application process. English proficiency scores, many universities will require them, but they may have different requirements about which tests they accept and don't accept. So these are the kind of things that you want to think about if you are thinking about studying in the US and need to start preparing for the application process. There are some other requirements that some universities have. We don't require, for example, credential evaluations to be done in advance, but some US universities will require this for international students, that you have to submit to a place such as or a company such as WES evaluations and get a credential evaluation and submit that with your application. So we don't require that at GW as engineering school, but you would want to ask other universities if they do require that. A few universities may require GRE subject tests, depending on the program that you're applying to. Some may have separate applications for scholarships. We do not at GW Engineering, but it's a question that you want to ask because you want to make sure that you're submitting everything that's required in the process. And then here's just a basic timeline. So if you are a student currently thinking about applying for next fall, that's where we're at right now in the cycle, in the process. Most of the students that we're working with are interested in fall 2023. That's August 2023 admission. So basically, right now is when you would be identifying programs of interest, identifying universities, asking your references to write you letters of recommendation, working on your statement of purpose and your resume, getting everything ready, everything lined up for the application process. And one of the most important parts in this time period is to take the necessary exams that you might need to take. So if schools are requiring GRE that you're applying to, you'll want to schedule and take that because that can take some time. And then, of course, the English exam as well. We take Duolingo now, and many of our students, our applicants, are submitting Duolingo because it's very easy to schedule. And get it completed in a short amount of time, but some universities are not taking that exam yet, and so that's something to consider. Is looking across all the universities you're applying to, and what the requirements are, so that you're prepared. Typically, application deadlines, ours is January 15th. Some will come earlier than that, some may come later than that. March 1st is also a common deadline. So typically around January, February, you want to have all your applications submitted, but do be sure to look for deadlines because some may be earlier than that. You'll be waiting for your admissions decision. You'll be learning about funding offers at that time if you receive a funding offer. And many universities will offer you the opportunity in the spring to talk with other admitted students, to talk with faculty in the program, to talk with current students. So this is kind of an opportunity now that you've been maybe admitted to a program to really evaluate if that program's the right fit for you. So this is a key time for you to ask all the questions that you want to ask, to think about what outcome you're really looking for, and make sure this university is going to fit, is going to be the best fit for you. And then finally in the summer, before your studies, so typically May, June, July, you'll be submitting all the required documents for your I-20. That's the document that would give you permission to apply for a US student visa. So at GW, for example, you submit all the documents to us to request your I-20. We issue the I-20 saying, yes, this student is studying at our university, and we vouch for them. And then you take that I-20 and schedule your visa interview. Once you get your visa, hopefully everything goes smoothly there, and then you would arrive in the US. Typically, it is up to 30 days before the start of your program, and that's a standard regulation. So that's probably the same across all universities in the US, that you would apply within the month that your program begins. Our classes start in August, late August. Some may start a little earlier, some may start a little later, just depends on the university. But that's a typical timeline for a student applying for the fall 2023 semester at this point. One thing I will caution you is, especially in India right now, as I'm sure you're all aware, if you're looking at studying abroad, it can be very difficult to get visa appointments. And so we are cautioning students to work well in advance as much as possible, to be very prompt about submitting necessary documents and requesting your I-20 and that sort of thing, so that we can work with you as quickly as possible. And you can start to schedule that visa appointment. We've seen very long wait times in India for visa appointments, but it's also changing on a daily basis. So one day it might seem impossible, and the next day suddenly there's new appointments available. So just another reason that it's really important to stay on top of deadlines and requirements. So my final topic before I turn over and let the students chat with you a bit as well is about funding opportunities. So I know this is questions that a lot of students may have, a lot of prospective students may have at this point, is what type of funding might be available to me at a university in the US? And I can tell you a little bit about the types of funding that are very common, so that you know what questions to ask when you're talking to US universities. So one type of funding is scholarships. These are awarded typically based on either merit or financial need. So some universities will consider students that have financial need, and they may ask you for certain documents or forms for that. At GW Engineering, for example, our scholarships are simply based on merit. So we look at all the aspects of your application, your previous academic records, your statement of purpose, your motivation for joining the program, all of those factors, and we offer scholarships to our competitive applicants. Typically, these are not required to be paid back in any way. It will be typically for a certain dollar amount. It may be a full scholarship. It may be a partial scholarship. It could be just a small scholarship of $1,000 or $2,000, for example. Some universities might help just offer a very small amount to offset some of the cost. Some universities might require a separate application for this, so pay attention to any requirements to be considered. And this is really common for master's students. So here at GW Engineering, for example, we offer our master's students merit scholarships, and they could range from typically 25% up to 75% for our very top applicants of the tuition cost. So that's how we manage our scholarships. All universities can do that very differently. Like I said, some may offer full scholarships. It's not super common for master's students, but it's possible. Some may offer dollar amounts, like I said, 1, 2,000, 5,000, 10,000. Pay attention to the fine print. Is that per semester? Is it per year? Is it renewable? If you're there for 2 years, do you get it the second year too? Think through all those details when you get a funding offer, and be sure to ask the right questions about that. Fellowships are typically also merit-based, but these are typically sort of a cross between scholarships and an assistantship opportunity. So they can cover the full cost of a program. They often could include tuition, health insurance, a living stipend to help offset your rent and things like that. These are typically awarded to doctoral students. And the main difference between this and an assistantship is a fellowship may or may not come with some sort of a work obligation. So it might just be a fellowship. Maybe it's to a student from a certain country, like a student studying from Japan. Maybe a Japanese alumni has offered a fellowship to a student, and that might cover the full cost of your program. And it may not come with any specific work obligation. So these are a little less common, but you may hear the word fellowship a lot. And so ask a lot of questions about what that covers, if it's for 1 year, if it's continuous, and so on. And then the more common option for doctoral students is that they receive an assistantship. And so this could be teaching assistantship, research assistantship. Some are just called grad assistantships, graduate assistantships. These are typically merit-based awards, so they're based on your past performance or something, your research experience, something that you can help with. And they are typically offered in exchange for work that you would do for that faculty member or that department. So you might teach a class, you might do research work up to 20 hours per week, for example. And this might include tuition coverage, health insurance, living stipend, and so on. Again, these are typically for doctoral students and are less common for master's students, but certainly some universities could offer an assistantship for master's students, and you'll just want to ask the details of how much that covers and what your obligation is, what your work obligation is if you're awarded this type of funding. Something to be aware of is how tuition works in the US. Most US universities at the graduate level are charging tuition on a per credit hour basis. So most classes are 3 credit hours. That means you're meeting for 3 hours a week. And so if a tuition is $1,500 per credit hour, I use in the example here, then you're registered for 9 credit hours. So your tuition would be $13,500 for that semester. So you want to kind of think through the math that you need to do to figure out the tuition for each program. At the graduate level, most universities are going to tell you a per credit hour tuition cost. So you could look at how many credit hours does a student take per semester, or how many credit hours is the full program. And then you can calculate out the cost of tuition for that program. Most students will have to do 9 credit hours per semester. This is what's considered full-time at the graduate level. And if you're studying on a student visa, you're required to be full-time. So that's going to be your typical course load per semester. Occasionally, you'll find universities in the US that offer, that tell you their tuition is on a per semester basis or even an annual basis. So they might say our tuition is just a flat rate of $20,000 per semester or something. So that's less common, but again, it's possible. So something to think about during your university search. And some other costs to consider, you'll see very clearly typically the cost of tuition for a program, but just think about other costs that you'll need during your time over the course of a few years in the US. So living expenses, rent, books, study materials, a laptop, transportation costs for the city that you're living in. So just consider those other costs of living as you weigh out what is affordable to you for a program. And yeah, these are all the things that I had just mentioned about considering funding opportunities at a university, or the value of a university as you're weighing out the cost versus any funding opportunities. So it all comes down to really a cost versus benefit analysis. So many universities will be less expensive, many will be more expensive. Some may offer you funding, some may not offer you funding. You really have to look at what you're investing in your education and what you're going to get out of it. So if it's going to be more expensive for you than other options, then really look at, but what are the career outcomes here? What does the alumni network look like here? What am I likely to get from this education? And maybe that's worth the extra cost for you. And if you have no flexibility on your financial arrangements, maybe you are not able to take on that extra cost, and you will look at lower cost opportunities that still have great networks and great career opportunities for you. So it's really just sort of doing that analysis yourself and asking the questions to put the information together. Okay, so that's enough for me. I've talked for a while about studying in the US. I hope it was helpful for you, but I do want to hear any other questions that you have about things that I wasn't able to address. But more importantly, I want to introduce our students. So I brought three students. We brought three students with us this morning to introduce to you and tell you a little bit about their experience studying in the US. So I'll let each of them introduce themselves. We have Ellie, who is an MS student here in biomedical engineering. We have Iyad, who's an MS student in engineering management. And we have Srinivas, who's currently a PhD student in electrical and computer engineering, but also who had a great internship experience recently. And I know you may have some questions about career opportunities. So unless you want to add anything before I start, Sanjay, I'll go ahead and kick it over to the students now.
So I think we are going to get Iyad, Ellie, and Srinivas to come and introduce themselves. Before we do that, to those of you who are attending this session, if you look at the chat window, I've posted certain links over there. One is, of course, the graduate programs list offered by GW Engineering. So there are 13 programs, I think, that GW Engineering offers right now. So various MS programs. So you can find the list of programs offered by GW Engineering on that particular link. I have also posted the application fee waiver code. If you want, you can make a note of that application fee waiver code right now. You can copy it from the chat window. If not, you'll also receive it through a WhatsApp message from Seed Global Education from our end. So you'll get the recording of the session plus the application fee waiver code in that message. Plus, since there were a lot of questions that came up around scholarships, I want to just flag off over here that Seed has also instituted a scholarship fund. So if you have attended the session and you apply to GW Engineering, and you make it, then you can also apply for the Seed Scholarship Fund. This is the preliminary interest form. It's a very short form, just 7-8 fields. You can fill it up very quickly. Let us know that you're interested in studying in the US or interested in studying at GW Engineering. And we can also consider you for this particular scholarship, which is given out by Seed Global Education. Very shortly, I'm also going to post a link to a YouTube recording. This was a session we did with GW Engineering last year. This was focused around career services that GW Engineering has. So your questions around what support that GW Engineering provides for careers, what kind of opportunities do students see after studying at GW Engineering, we'll get all of those answers in that YouTube recording as well. With that, let me invite Iyad, Srinivas, and Ellie to briefly introduce themselves. So tell us where you study, where you grew up, how did you end up at GW Engineering, and how has been your experience so far? So let me start with Srinivas. He's the PhD student, so I'm assuming more senior amongst the three. So let me start with Srinivas.
Thank you, Sanjay. Hello, everyone. I'm Srinivas. I'm from Amravati, Maharashtra. I am pursuing my PhD in Department of Electrical and Computer Engineering in the Networks and Communication field. Before joining GW, I finished my master's at IIT ISM in India, where I worked in the same domain of networks and communication. And there I got to know about many universities which offer the research PhD in the same domain. But I chose GW because of the facilities and provided on the research side, as well as my advisor's profile. He has a strong profile in that field. And the facilities provided by GW are excellent. So I chose GW over other seven universities from where I got the admit. I recently finished my internship at Meta, where I was situated in Menlo Park, which is the main campus of Facebook, where I worked with the backbone engineering team of the networking team at Meta. And whatever I worked on, like the tool and machine learning assisted tools, are still being used in the Meta's network. So it was a great experience for me. Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Srinivas. Let me get
Thank you.
Iyad in as well. Iyad?
Yeah, can you hear me well? Awesome, great. So thank you first for this invitation. So I'm Iyad, I'm an international student as well. I think assuming maybe similar to many of you. And I'm originally from Morocco. I did my undergrad in Connecticut College, which is up in New England. And during my search for the master's degrees, I've applied to many schools, received a couple of offers. But the main advice that I would be giving in general is looking at the content of the program. And GW Engineering GW in general is a pretty large school. So what does that mean? It simply means that your choices are pretty large. And what does that mean? It means that simply you will be able to select from a wide variety of classes. You can be selecting really interesting classes such as decision making under uncertainty, or how to build pretty complex systems. So before my experience at GW, I worked briefly in California, in Silicon Valley. And then it was in education technology. But after that, I realized that the value of a master's degree, specifically either in engineering management or system engineering, will not only make you a good engineer, but in general, how to use those engineering skills and apply them into like a practical setting. So this is a very brief introduction of mine, and I'm very happy, guys, to answer any of your questions and really guide you to make maybe a pretty well-informed decision. And I give the floor to Sanjay.
And with that, let me get Ellie into the picture as well. So Ellie, why don't you start with your brief introduction as well?
Hi, so can everybody hear me? Hi,
Yes.
so my name's Ellie Moon and I'm from South Korea. I've also studied in New Zealand before, but I got my undergraduate degree in South Korea in biotechnology. And when I was in Korea, I did an internship at a biotech company. And that was when I felt like that biomedical engineering is a very interdisciplinary field. And GW offered the chances to study like broadly. So we were allowed to take elective courses that were outside our major. And I thought that was what I wanted for my master's degree. So that was one of the main reasons that I came to the school. And right now it's my first semester here, and I love the location of the school. I love the connections you can make with friends of other schools, so outside C's. And I'm enjoying getting to know the professors here. So yeah, thank you.
Great. Thanks, Ellie. Thanks to all of you for the brief introductions and for joining this session. And I think let me start with the audience questions. There are 36 questions. I'll try to take as many as I can. My apologies if I'm not able to pick all the questions. To those of you who pinged me in the chat window asking for the application fee waiver code, the YouTube recording to the career session, and some other requests, I've reposted all of those links in one common post in the chat window. You should be able to see this over there now. So I posted the link to the graduate programs offered by GW Engineering, the application fee waiver code, the scholarship, seed scholarship preliminary application form link, and also the link to the YouTube recording of how to secure your dream job in the US post STEM masters. This was done with GW Engineering's careers team earlier this year. So that recording is also available in the chat window to you. With that, let me take the first question. And I think, Iyad, this is possibly a question which is more relevant, or you'd be the perfect person to answer this. The question is, what is more logical, or what makes more sense? Go into an MS program directly after your undergrad education, or get some years of work ex before pursuing your master's? And if yes, some work ex, then how many years that you recommend?
Yeah, so actually my situation is pretty interesting because I started working during my CPT. So it was a kind of a co-op program, and then extended that right after. So it really depends on your own purpose. So like, what do you want to be doing with your education? So in some fields, so for example, if you would be pursuing an MBA, most cases you would be having some hands-on experience and then going over to doing an MBA. But in other cases, if you are more interested, for example, in academia, pursuing your own projects or different things, maybe a master's right after graduation might be the best bet. And also, if you are looking at some specific masters, such as engineering management or other masters, those are kind of masters that builds on some undergrad majors. So for example, you might be taking a technical undergrad major, such as computer science or chemical engineering, whichever thing. So your undergrad experience will equip you with the technical skills, and then the master's degree will equip you with how to synthesize those skills and what to do with them from like either a business perspective or from either like a managerial perspective. So I would say there is no really right or wrong approach to whether you should go to a master right after, but what you should really, what every student should be asking is what's their end goal and whether that master will serve as a bridge between where they are currently at and what's the end purpose of their career choice.
I think that was very perfectly captured. I think it's to each one their own. You need to take basis your goals, what you're looking for. You'll need to take a call whether to get some work experience or directly go into the program. And in the next most upvoted question that I see is around the placement assurance or the placement statistics that GW Engineering has. Any link or any data points that you can provide to the audience?
Yeah, so data, I don't have a lot of data to offer in this regard, although I will say that we are doing a planning to do another career session in a few months with the SEED team, where our career director should be joining that session as well. And so that would be an interesting time to talk more about this. But for today, let me explain just in general. You'll have maybe a harder time finding the data at the graduate level in the US for placements, because it's not tracked. It's not required to be tracked in the same way that it is for our bachelor's students in the US. So as a graduate student, I think it is important to ask this type of question. But what we'll find is that many of our students, for example, being international students in our graduate programs, they may return to their home country after the program, and then we don't have any way of knowing their employment situation or anything. So it really can vary greatly by university how they track this information. One thing we do track at GW very closely, for example, is how many students we have on OPT at any given time. And I don't remember the exact number myself, but you know, it's something that the university is required to track. I believe it's over 500 currently or something like that. But OPT, for example, is quite common for our students, and the students that are interested in pursuing work opportunities and that are motivated, that take the steps necessary, they do typically find an opportunity during the course of their program. Placement is a word that that you'll kind of hear different responses to in the US as well, because there are like technical colleges that offer shorter degrees, typically not graduate degrees maybe, but shorter programs that will promise you placement, quote unquote. They'll guarantee that you'll get a job within 6 months of taking their program or something. But most large universities, most well-established universities in the US are not going to guarantee placement in this way, because it depends so much on the students' work that they do, the students' motivation, etc. So yeah, that's the long answer. The short answer is you can always talk with the career services, and we can even connect prospective students with career services to ask some questions about common jobs in that field, or what alumni do you have in that field, and what jobs are they doing, you know, recently or something like that. The career services teams are the best place to get those responses, I think.
Makes sense. And Erin, the next question, or the most upvoted. So to the audience, you can upvote the questions which have already been asked and tell me which are the important ones. So I can pick up those particular questions to ask to Erin and the students. The question is around the visa support provided by the university to the Indian students.
Yes, so that's a great question. And what we do is provide the student with the I-20 and support for getting the I-20. So we have an international expert on our team that works with all of our admitted international students to prepare your documents for the I-20. So you have to prepare some financial documents, you submit your passport, etc. This person will work with you on an individual basis to be sure that all the documents that you're submitting are exactly right, that you're submitting the correct amount, that everything, you know, for some students, everything needs to be in English and written on the right type of form and that sort of thing. This person will work with you individually to make sure that everything you're submitting is perfect for the I-20. And then GW will typically issue I-20s within 1 to 2 weeks of receiving all your documents at that certain time of year. And so that's a very fast response. We know that once you're ready to request your I-20, it's our job to get it to you as quickly as possible, because you can't apply for your student visa until you have that document in your hand. So we do that processing very quickly and we get it to you. From there, you make your own student visa appointment. We're not allowed, universities aren't allowed to help specifically with like visa appointment scheduling and stuff. And we are not allowed to offer advice for visa appointments. So for example, we can't tell you the best way to answer certain questions or something like that. Universities just aren't allowed to offer that kind of advice. But at that point, we've done everything we can to prepare you for that interview. And then you just go into the interview, you be prepared about your studies, your plans for studying in the US, and maybe most importantly, how you intend to finance it and what you feel like the payoff will be. And you have good answers prepared for that. And most students we find the most students going into visa interviews are very successful. The problem that we find nowadays is just the length of time required to get the visa. That's the main hindrance. And so the best we can do to support you in that area is do everything on our side as quickly as possible and get the documents you need in your hands.
Perfect. So great. So if you are looking for the next year's intake, my personal advice in that case would be to apply early, hopefully secure your admit, and then get started on the visa processing as soon as possible. Yeah. Once we get into the summer, there's the wait time for the visa interview really extends. We saw this last year that it was running for 6 to 9 months in some cities in India. So it's really long wait as well. So make sure you apply early, secure your admit, and get started on that visa process as soon as you can. So my apologies to Ellie, Iyad, and Srinivas. A lot of questions which are coming are still relevant to Erin. So let me take this up. Erin, this is a question asked by Madhur, who was asking, what is the most important thing that you look for in an application while selecting a candidate? Are those the academic grades? Since now you're GRE optional, there can be some applicants with the score, some without the score. So what do you look for when you're selecting candidates?
So it's a little bit different depending on what type of program you're applying to, but let me say for engineering, and maybe a difference between MS and PhD applicants. For PhD applicants, I would say the most important experience that faculty members are looking for are probably the really relevant research experience or work experience in the certain field of study that professor is specializing in. So that's at the PhD level. And of course, they want to make sure you're coming from a good university, you have a strong background, etc. For MS candidates, I would say most important part is probably your academic documents. So just seeing your academic history, your grades, your marks, and what university you studied at, what type of classes you take. We look at all of those things when we review your application. Maybe the second most important part is really your motivation for studying in the US. So we can get that from a couple different parts of your application. So maybe your letters of recommendation, maybe someone's mentioning why you want to study in the US, or most importantly, your statement of purpose. That's where you are telling us why you want to pursue this program and what you hope to achieve in this program or after this program. So we really want to make sure that your motivation as a student matches our university, and all universities are looking for this as well. If your motivation is that it's your life dream to work in the state of Texas, and so you want to come to our university, and we're thinking, well, we're in Washington DC, like maybe you should go to a university in Texas. If there's something about your motivation that doesn't quite match our university, that might make us question why you want to study with us. So we just want to see that your interests align with what our university offers.
All right, great. Thanks for that, Erin. Okay, so the next question is a tricky one. It's the most avoided question, so I'm going to pick it up. The question is around the expected recession in the US. What is the impact? So one thing which I would clarify that none of us are economic experts. We can't really project or predict what the impact of the recession, or if there is going to be a recession in the first place. So no one can predict that. But anyone who wants to share experiences around this, so Ellie, Srinivas, Iyad, and then if you want to come in over here, feel free. Or if you want, I can share a small perspective over here as well.
Yeah, I'll defer to if any of the students have anything to add, but I mean, I guess the question would be like, as a student, are you finding impact to what's going on in the US, like economically with the job market? Do you feel like that's impacting you right now as a student? Are you worried about job opportunities after your program and that sort of thing? Personally, from my perspective, historically, during recessions has been a time where we see an increase in students wanting to pursue their education because they want to have enhanced credentials, they want to be stronger in the job search and that type of thing. So it tends to be a good time to study in a university, but I defer to the students to if they have any insight into like what they feel like is going on in the job market or something.
Sure.
Or Sanjay, you can comment as well.
Let me bring them in. So Iyad, Ellie, Srinivas, if you can also share your experience of your interactions with GW's career services team. So if you have interacted with the team, how's been your experience so far? If you can talk about that, that would be great as well.
Yeah, I can go. Yeah, sorry, Ellie. Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure if this is just for Korea, but in Korea, it's getting more difficult for people with just an undergraduate degree to get a good job. So a lot of people are going to graduate schools. And for me, I thought that going to a graduate school outside of my country, so outside of my boundaries, would be good for competition against other students in Korea.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can go now.
Makes sense. Go ahead, Srinivas.
So coming to a question about like using the career services at GW. So I was highly benefited from that service because I build my resume using their service. Like they give you a template and they help you like how to make that resume look good. So just to give you an insight for like Indian students that the format of resume is totally different in US. On top of that, the placement scenario is also totally different in US, that companies do not come to campus. You have to apply to the companies. So it's like it's an open market for all the students, irrespective of your university. But your university gives you the advantage of having like career services and etc. So I was highly benefited from that. It's true that there is a recession, and as Ili mentioned, that having a master's degree is totally a plus point. And I can give you more insights on that, but not in this at this venue. But the real issue, the real point is that if you have the master's degree right now, you will definitely graduate after the recession. So this is the best time. I should say this is the best time as compared to like the last year or the next year to pursue masters, because you will cover up that recession time in your masters only. So that's my personal opinion. Yeah.
And that makes sense. So even if you look at, I can say this because possibly I'm old enough to have experienced or seen this, but if you look at the 2009 financial crisis, right, when the world economy did face a lot of recession across the board, that possibly became a great time to be at schools. Applications to B schools and master's programs did go up at that time. And by the time the students graduated in 2011, 2012, the economies were again picking up, hiring was increasing again, and then we saw the boom period till the pandemic, till 2020, and even post that because of the financial easing. So possibly a recession tends to be a good time to be a student and complete your studies during that time and graduate for better opportunities. The challenge is you can never predict the market. So I think predicting what would happen, it's practically impossible for anyone. So you can't really plan saying, hey, this is going to be the recession year, so I'm going to go in and by the time I graduate, it would surely be out of recession. You can never predict that very accurately. So best thing is to invest in yourself, get good quality education, go to good schools, get that right brand network in your kitty, and then doors open up for you. Just a small personal experience over here. Let me take, so I know a lot of questions are coming in. There are 47 pending questions, and we are already up to time. We had planned this session to be a 1 hour session. We are already at that mark. I'm going to extend this session by another 10 minutes to take up 4 or 5 more questions, but it would really help me if the audience can upvote the questions. So if you can go to the question list, just upvote the questions that you think are most relevant. That way I can pick up the most upvoted questions to ask in this limited time that we have. The next question that I have, which has come up, and this is very specifically about George Washington Engineering and the university, is about the accommodation facilities for international students. And in the same, Iyad, if you can also talk about the location advantage. So you guys did touch upon a little bit about the university's location, but if you can talk about the facilities which are available to international students, and also talk about the Washington, D.C. location of the school.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for the invitation. So basically, even when you are looking for a job or anything, one of the most important thing is not only just like your academic background, but I would say more importantly, your network and who do you interact with. And Washington, D.C. is one of the best places to network. So GW is literally 1 block away or 2 from the IMF, and which is also like close to the World Bank. So in case you're interested in those fields, it's really one of the best. It's really one of the best places to network. So the other thing is there are a lot of other students. So in a case you are interested in pursuing other entrepreneurial ventures, I think it's just like really great to collaborate because it's a very large institution. And Washington, D.C. is also 3 hours away from New York. So if a conference is there or something, you can hop on a train and 3 hours you are there. And I would say that the location of GW is one of the things that has attracted me to or convinced me to join the school. And I would highly advise you to look at location as one of the most important things in your application.
Great. And if any of you want to talk about the accommodation facilities for the students at the university.
Oh, I can answer this one really quickly unless the students want to add anything. But at GW, for graduate students, we don't provide housing. This is what you're referring to, right? For accommodation, housing. So we don't provide housing for graduate students. We provide resources like to help students with their search. So here, like some neighborhoods to look at, some apartment websites, there's like a chat board where you can find roommates in the universities. But this is definitely a great question to ask for the universities that you're looking at. Some will provide on-campus housing and some will just direct you to other resources. For graduate students, this varies a lot. So we find that most of our graduate students might prefer not to live in a dormitory environment anyway. So they might prefer to have their own apartments, but yeah, it can vary a lot depending on the university.
Okay, great. Erin, I'm going to pick up a question out of turn over here. There were some questions around the application deadline. So I know you have a spring intake, you also have a fall intake. So some people wanted to get clarity in the application deadlines.
Yeah, so currently we're working for fall 2023 admission. So that would be to start your program in August. And the deadline for this is January 15th. So right now you have exactly 2 months to complete the application process. We recommend that you don't apply on January 15th. It's best to submit in advance, just because after that we might have some questions. We still need mark sheets, or you know, we didn't receive your English scores yet, or something like that. So we typically recommend you apply a little bit in advance so we have a chance to get any missing documents. For spring intake, that starts every year in January, and the deadline is September 1st.
All right, great. And Erin, the application fee waiver code that you're giving out today, is that valid? Till when is that valid? Yeah,
at least the next minimum a year. So all our application fee waivers will be valid for at least 1 year. So you could apply to fall 2023 or spring 2024 with that application fee waiver.
Okay, great. So to the audience, before we miss this, I've posted the link to the GW programs again in the chat window. I have also put the waiver code over there. The waiver code is SEED MC November NOV22. So you can use that code to apply to GW Engineering and get your application fee waived off for the fall 2023 intake and even for the spring 2024 4 intake technically, because that the application would happen within the next 1 year as such. So
Just a point of clarification there, that'll just work for our engineering school. And so if you're applying to a business program or something else, that fee waiver won't work, just for engineering. Yeah.
So perfect. So this code is for GW Engineering. I'm going to reinforce this. It's for GW Engineering. We also work with GW School of Business. They do give out application fee waiver code as well, but you would need to attend, if you're looking at a business program, you'll need to attend their session and get that waiver code from us. Duhita, I'm going to skip your question because you can find the program list at GW Engineering on the link that I shared. So I'm going to skip your question for the time being. And let me take the next question. Erin, this is from Anushka, who is asking if you accept any 3-year graduate degrees for admission to your postgrad programs.
So it can vary a little bit depending on what the exact degree you got and where you got it from. Typically, we do not accept 3-year degrees from India, unless you've also completed like a master's degree or a post-bachelor study of some sort. But again, it can vary a little bit depending on the exact degree. So you can email us if you want. Our email address, I can put it in the chat also, is engineering@gwu.edu. And if you have a question about your background, your qualification for a program, please just attach your transcript, your mark sheet, your degree, whatever you have to show what your studies were, and we can just take a look at that and reply about your eligibility.
Perfect. So for all your specific, so Erin has posted that in the chat window. I'm going to post it for everyone's benefit. Okay. So the email address is in the chat window now. For any personal queries, right, for your profile specific questions. So Prachi, your question as well, you're interested in pursuing cybersecurity, but you don't want to limit yourself to cybersecurity. So such questions which are very specific about your profile, please email the GW team. They are very hands-on, they're very quick to respond. So do get clarity over email. I'm going to pick up more generic questions so that it's beneficial to the larger audience. So I'm going to take Prachi's second question. And she's asking about the additional material required for I-20 and D60 visa applications. When do they start the process? Do they start the process now, or do they first get the admit from GW and then start the process? My understanding is they need to get the admit first before they start the process, but any clarity over there?
Yeah, exactly. So you get the admit, you need to understand any financial information. So if you receive any scholarship or funding, because you'll need that documentation to request your I-20. So for us, this typically begins by, I believe, March 1st. Approximately, give or take. So just to give you an idea about the timeline. So we'll start offering admissions after the January 15th deadline. And then typically we start working with students on the I-20 requests around March 1st. I do know that some students will try to request I-20s from multiple universities. So if you have multiple admits, technically you can go through that process with multiple universities, but I do encourage you to just streamline your efforts so that you're working as efficiently as possible towards the university that you're intending to attend. Typically, this gets very confusing for the universities. So if you have an I-20 from us, we assume you're coming here. If you have an I-20 from other universities, they assume you're coming here. So you want to make sure you're really streamlining your efforts by the time you get to that I-20 process. Most universities will be offering more information sessions about that time, maybe individual meetings, maybe even events in country sometimes for admitted students. So really all the opportunities to ask your questions so that you can decide by the time you're requesting your I-20 for sure which university is best for you.
Great. So I'm going to take up the last 2 questions now.
Okay.
There's a question from Tahseen about the opportunities to work as an apprentice or graduate research assistantships. I know, Erin, you did show a slide around that, but any numbers on how many students end up pursuing those, or if not that, what are the other work opportunities for the students? Or if Elia, Srinivas, you want to pitch in over here, you can come in as well. So any on-campus or off-campus work opportunities that you explored as a student?
Yeah, I'll defer to the students to add anything from their personal experience, but you can certainly get on-campus jobs. So that's something I'll just mention separate from your like professional development opportunities that you're looking for. These might be just basic jobs like working in an office or something like that. These are available to international students up to 20 hours per week of work. So if you're looking for work like for financial support to help support your studies, that's an option for you during your time in the US. That can only be on your campus, like within your university. Otherwise, you can pursue CPT, and I don't know that if any of our students here, I guess Srinivas, maybe your internship was CPT, you can clarify, but you can pursue CPT also during your master's program. Again, it has to be directly related to your course of study. So if you're an engineer, you can't get a job in a restaurant and consider it CPT or something. You have to apply and you have to have a directly relevant position.
Srinivas, do you want to come in over here? Did you pursued the CPT, right?
Yeah, so for the work requirement, if you want to work in the, as Erin mentioned, in the same field, as a full-time student in the summer, like where there are no classes, then you can use your CPT. Just the requirement is that I think it is not applicable to master student, because if you use all your CPT period, you cannot use your OPT period. So you have to be careful in that. But I think that is not applicable to master student. And for the students who are joining in their first semester or something, they can get the on-campus job, which is, I think, easier as compared to other universities. Especially in engineering department, there are TA positions and RA positions. So I think if students are coming to pursue engineering, then it's pretty easy for them to get a job.
And commenting briefly on that, actually for the CPT, if you are international students, you will be having up to like 12 months. So you can be, for example, doing two semesters. As long as you are under the 12-month, you will still be eligible to do the OPT. But if you go over the CPT like a period of a year, then you are no longer eligible for the OPT.
Thank you for clarifying that. I didn't.
All right, great. With that, we are significantly over time now. I want to apologize to the, so I see 47 unanswered questions. My apologies for that. There are just too many questions coming in. But I do hope that you found this interaction beneficial and useful so far. My advice to all those who are still in the room and attending, there are 100+ people still in the room. So some advice and quick ones over here. If you have more follow-on questions, possibly reach out to Ellie, Iyad, Srinivas or LinkedIn, possibly send a message, request them for their time and get your doubts clarified. You can also email the GW Engineering team and get your queries answered through there as well. One important piece of information, in early December, Catherine Huggins, who's from the admissions team, she's traveling in India. She is doing such student interactions, small group interactions with the admitted students and also prospective students in various cities. So I know she's doing this in Hyderabad, Mumbai, and Chennai. She's also going to be in Bangalore and Delhi, but Hyderabad, Mumbai and Chennai, she's surely doing those open interactions. Since you have attended this session, we can send you that information over a WhatsApp message, and you can register to meet her in person as well in these cities. So this is some heads up information for the attendees who are still in the room. I've posted the message again about the application fee waiver code. So that's in the chat window. If you haven't found it, you can also get this information through a WhatsApp message from Steve. We'll get it over the next 1 or 2 days. The application fee waiver code would be there. The YouTube link recording of this session would be there. And all the information that I was talking about around the SEED Scholarship Fund, that link would also be there in that WhatsApp message. So watch out for that. And yeah, if you're making an application to GW Engineering, do that soon, start your application soon. When you possibly meet Catherine in December, you can clarify your application doubts as well with her. So make the most of this time, use the waiver code, start your application, and make a great application and an early application. With that, thank you to the audience for attending this session. It's been extremely engaging. It's been great to see the enthusiasm. So thank you for being such a patient audience. And thank you to Erin, Srinivas, Ellie, and Iyad for sharing their insights and perspective. It's been a pleasure hosting all of you over here today evening. Thank you again. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sanjay. Bye.